are these people?
The CIA discussed assassination of Fidel Castro with UK officials. This is from Declassified UK, right?
Yeah.
John McAvoy, I think is how you pronounce that. McAvoy, one of those.
John McAvoy.
Yeah. So, exclusive. British diplomats advised the CIA on the impact of killing the Cuban leader just as the U.S. was preparing a massive covert action campaign against Castro. So, this is just came out. So, Fidel Castro's Secret Service chief once estimated that 634 attempts were made against the Cuban leader's life. From exploding cigars to poison pills, Washington's campaign to assassinate Castro remains an infamous case of Cold War covert action. The presence of a revolutionary government in Cuba, just 90 miles off the coast of Florida, was intolerable for the U.S. government. What is less well known is that Britain collaborated with Washington's anti-Castro operations in the early 1960s. A Foreign Office document classified for 6 decades and only recently released as the National Archives reveals British diplomats discussed the disappearance of Castro with the CIA. In November 1961, Thomas Brimlow, a high-flying British diplomat in Washington, went with his colleague Alan Clark to meet the CIA. Clark, who was visiting America from his post at the British Embassy in Havana, offered U.S. intelligence a window into Cuba, a country the State Department had pulled out from. After opening statements, the CIA men cut to the chase, asking Clark whether the disappearance of Fidel Castro himself would have serious repercussions in Cuba. Brimlow's minutes of that meeting, marked secret and personal, show the British duo did not protest the unsuitable allusion to Castro's assassination. So what do you guys think so far?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is nothing new. We've been doing this for a long time. Since we've decided to branch out, maybe even before, but since we've decided to branch out after World War II, and we were in a competitive race with Soviet Union to conquer the globe pretty much. And it's simple. Anywhere south of the United States is considered, I mean, on racial lines is inferior. They consider it inferior, so they do whatever they want to South America, to Central America, to anywhere in the Caribbean. The French, and all the stuff that they've done to the Caribbean and in Haiti, everywhere. So down there, it's sort of like their playground, and they like to call the shots on basically who gets to live or die, which countries get to prosper, which countries get to be exploited.
Yeah.
And so this is nothing new. I mean, they created Castro. I think they created Castro, in my opinion. I think that he, when they couldn't control him, and he wasn't going to be their puppet, that is where I think the animosity came from. And I think that's why they hated him so much. So, and he wouldn't cow down to them. And the minute that, the Soviet Union came in, it was it. That was like the seal of the deal, and they just wanted to get rid of him. So it doesn't surprise me. I mean, this is just what we do,
I find it interesting that Britain is also involved here, right?
Yeah.
That those, we've been handshaking with them for a minute in our, like, look what happened with Iraq and Iran, right? Like, both of those cases, British prime ministers just went, yep, no, we're going to do what you guys are going to do, so interesting to see we had that, somewhat of that back then,
Yeah. Well, we're very close. We're very, very close. I mean, us in the UK and Britain, I mean, we're so close as far as, I mean, every agenda we do, whether it was in Iraq, Afghanistan, I mean, it's just they're with us on everything. So it doesn't surprise me. We work close with MI6, and the Mossad. We just work like those three intelligence services just work hand in hand together. We're constantly, so every little thing that goes on in the West, you can pretty much count them. They were going to be together on something.
Yep.
They'll be included.
Yep.
The Brits reside with some do anyways.
Right.
So what difference does it make?
Right. It sounds like it sounds like Kris is in Brooklyn, like right with like, you know, a ballpark like right outside it. You know, he's got to like yell out the window like it's Seinfeld. You kids, like,
That's actually not me. I think that's you. Someone else is
might be
right?
Angels.
That could be me. There's some
That
kids
could be
outside
cute.
yelling.
It's Jersey,
Some
just a
fucking kids
Jersey
outside.
ballpark playing stickball outside, like, you know. But anyway,
summertime. It's
Shut
getting
the
warm. It was
fuck
warm
up,
out here
kids.
today. They're all
right?
over. Everybody's
That's
outside
probably
today.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, you might mute if you're not talking. That might help. Whoever's
Yeah,
it is,
okay.
like in Zoom, you know. But anyway,
It's probably me.
we'll
Yeah.
continue into this article here. So Clark responded that Raul Castro had been nominated as Fidel's successor, and he might succeed in taking Fidel's place if adequate time was allowed. More frankly, Clark added, if Fidel were to be assassinated, then it was less certain that there would be a smooth takeover. The state apparatus, which was apparently strong enough to cope with the gradual changeover, might not cope with a sudden crisis. The revelations raised fresh questions about how much Britain knew of Washington's secret efforts to topple Castro. The subversive discussion came months after the White House had cut off diplomatic relations with Havana and attempted a failed invasion at Cuba's Bay of Pigs. Just days after the UK CIA meeting, President John F. Kennedy authorized Operation Mongoose, a secret program to remove Castro by any means necessary. The following year, Clark became first secretary at the British Embassy in Washington. Brimlow ultimately went on to run the Foreign Office and receive a life peerage. So, yeah, I mean, Operation Mongoose, classically, Bay of Pigs, classic failure, you know. But yeah, it's just interesting how the British were involved here, I think. You know, I haven't heard about that. So
yeah, well, I mean, the British play an intricate part in this because what they'll do is they'll go in as a neutral party. They'll cozy up to the Cuban government through their embassy, and they'll just be like, we're just here, to monitor the situation. Meanwhile, they'll be, working for the United States. So I'm pretty sure Cuba would be aware of it, but they were probably using, my guess, they were probably using the British embassy over there to sort of gather intel and figure ways where Castro would be, where they can carry out the assassination, things of that nature.
Right.
So they, because the United States can't go in there, they don't have an embassy in there. So, Britain's in there. So Britain will go in and, just give them intel. So, stuff like that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think Castro was able to evade all those attempts. I think it was over 100 attempts. He was able to evade them.
It was
It's 432.
Yeah, hold on, we'll go back.
It's 432, the exact number.
Yeah,
like
the
right.
His agent had his guard had a number 634 attempts. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and one was including poisoning a cigar, think of that, like crazy stuff.
Right. Exploding cigar. I mean, this is around the time where we have the CIA making like heart attack, darts, and like that we know about, that were used somewhere, like that we know that's how it worked. Like, they were definitely trying to, and this was in the era of toppling regimes for America. This is Oliver North and the Sandinistas. This is, countless, versions of this. And then we just continued that like foreign policy over into the Middle East.
Right.
We just moved from South America and, and like the Caribbean to the Middle East, essentially, and before that we were doing that in the Pacific. So, but
right. Do you think, I always I ask myself this question a lot when I think about this particular subject. And I'm like, in the 70s and 80s, we pretty much were like at our highest military might. So at that point in time, and I always wonder, why didn't we go into Cuba? Like, why are we holding back? Like, why come we didn't go in? And like, the only logical reason I could come up with was that the Soviet Union had closer ties to Cuba, and that might have triggered like a nuclear confrontation. But I
Yeah.
couldn't see like we were going into South America, Central America. I couldn't see like why are we holding out on Cuba? We
Because
have
I
the
don't
embargo.
I don't think you could have proxy warred it in Cuba.
Well,
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Angel.
the Soviets had secret nuclear weapons in Cuba.
Right.
Not just the Bay of Pigs, but they took the weapons out, but they had secret weapons somebody knew about.
I mean, at least
okay.
that's what we were
According
told.
to what was it?
I mean, you have the Cuban Missile Crisis,
yeah, they
which
had
could be
secret
argued
weapons.
was well, you're right, but it could be argued that so did Iraq and Iran had WMDs and all this stuff. So you're not sure whether the U.S. government is telling the truth there or not. Like
Right.
even that was going back then. They were questioning that
according
then.
to the Americans. Yeah.
Right, like the Cubans
The
be like,
Americans,
what
they had
part of the
secret
island
weapons,
you think can
supposedly,
fit a
so-
silo? Like, so yeah, who knows? But
Yeah, to be fair, it was an American documentary on History Channel I saw, so that could be
Right.
wrong, but that's
mean,
why I never invaded Cuba.
I mean, that's the whole Cuban Missile Crisis situation, right? Which is like, contested historically now, But I mean, it's partially Castro was willing to talk to the commies at that point. That was the only reason why we were there, and resources that we felt like we were losing because they were doing that.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Any like association with the Soviet Union, any country had any type of association with the Soviet Union,
Yeah,
we were there. We're ready to go. Take them out,
Yep.
regime change them. That was a big deal back then.
very much so.
Vietnam,
And it's back now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
still
with
the
Pakistan,
case.
via
the
Pakistan.
Viet Cong, etc.
Right. I mean, right now, look at the propaganda over Russia and Ukraine. It's very similar stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well, we just
Oh,
overthrew
God.
Pakistan because Khan went over to Russia and met with Putin. So we just couped them literally like last week.
right. Yep.
So
So anyway,